Well, I won't say I told you so, but past me will. Grossi Posse Packer Nation, welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it short does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and yeah, it's time to talk about Kirk Cousins. I saw when I was looking up stats that a lot of articles are starting to come out about Kirk Cousins, and I didn't read them because I wanted to come in here with my own opinion, and I feel like we need to talk Vikings fans. We do, and this is something that impacts the entire NFC North. Yeah, so the Vikings, let's rewind a bit, because obviously when this occurred, when he signed his contract, I thought that this was a bad move. I loved it because it meant the Vikings were going to do poorly, but I did not understand it. I didn't understand giving him the amount of money that you did, and it was all guaranteed, and at the time you made him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And listen, this is what the quarterback market demands. And that even just to get an adequate quarterback, you're going to shell out some cash. But I thought the Vikings, man, yeah, they really, they paid a lot of money. And so the problem here, and why I feel that I need to talk about it, is because now, I mean, after sitting through the barn burner that was the Bears and Vikings game yesterday, you look at what Kirk Cousins is doing, and any time this season that you've had to rely on him to actually go in and win the Vikings the game, he has just not been able to produce. And again, as I've said about every single other team, it's still September, it's still early. Does me making this video mean that the Vikings are doomed for the entire season? I hope so, but I'm also not egotistical and narcissistic enough to be like, yeah, this means that Kirk Cousins is done. So the problem is, though, is that his own team is starting to become so visibly frustrated with his lack of production and lack of ability, because the amount of money that you paid for Kirk Cousins, who is the highest paid player on your team and the number 6 highest paid quarterback this year, sure as hell ain't playing like it, because you gave superstar money to an adequate player. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And I think the quote from Adam Thielen yesterday really kind of speaks volumes as to what's going on from a Minnesota fan's perspective, and also within the team. It's bad when Adam Thielen is saying at some point you're not going to be able to run the ball for 180 yards. That's when you have to be able to throw the ball. You have to be able to make plays. You have to be able to hit the deep ball. You have to do that. Thielen has to be pissed after having a great season, or at least first 3 quarters of the season last year, in which he was setting record after record after record. This has got to be pretty damn frustrating for him, because the focal point of that offense is Dalvin Cook. You take him away like the Bears did yesterday, it's done. Game over, man. Game over. He went on to say, I think we're just as frustrated as every fan in the state of Minnesota. Every Minnesota Vikings fan. We are more frustrated. We put everything into the offseason. We grind every single day. And then to put a performance like that, it's so frustrating. It's unbelievable. Now, Adam Thielen, near the end of the season, was ripping into Kirk Cousins. Right on the sideline, they were having disputes. And at some point, you say as a Vikings fan, you look at this situation, you're like, wow, this is not sustainable. As a fan, I am pissed off just looking at this, but now the team is like, oh man, this is bad. And I want to, we have to go back in order to go forward here, because to fully understand the title of this video, it is the Vikings are truly stuck right now with Kirk Cousins for a short time, but they're still stuck with him until the end of next season, unless they literally just want to kill their cap, which they kind of already have. And so 2018, Kirk Cousins signs a 3-year, $84 million contract, fully guaranteed. It was the first contract of its kind in which you threw a ridiculous amount of money at him. And this was coming off of, you guys were just in the NFC Championship game with Case Keenum, and that defense, if they were actually able to play against Philadelphia, you would have hosted your own Super Bowl, and you would have been able to rip me a new one of, like, take that, Tom. And I gotta be honest, after that season, I was like, oh crap, it's gonna be the Vikings and it's gonna be the Packers, and the Vikings, they had a young, hungry team that it's gonna be tough. And then last year, the Bears came out of absolutely nowhere, and I was like, oh crap, here we go again. This is going to be really, really tough. And then the Vikings fell off. And again, they're only 2-2 this year, but what I've seen thus far against somewhat quality opponents hasn't been good. And so to break down just the contract of why you guys are stuck with him, in 2018, he had $22.5 million as his base salary and had a cap hit of $24 million. And if you were just like, oh God, at the end of the season, he would have been a dead cap hit of $84 million, the entirety of his contract. 2019, $27.5 million for base salary. It's a cap hit of $29 million. If you cut him this year, $60.5 million dead cap. And then let's just say this year doesn't go well again. In 2020, he's due $29.5 million as just his base salary. He's $31 million hit against the cap, and he'd be $31 million in dead money if you decide to cut him at the end of this season. So, yeah, you're stuck with him. He'll be 32 next season, and he'll be a free agent in 2021 when he's 33, which I'm not gonna lie, you're probably not gonna re-sign him. Or if you do, it's gonna be for real cheap. But I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. And last season, it was respectable numbers. 425 completions out of 606 attempts, 70% completion. That's really good. Over 4,000 yards, 4,298 to be specific. 30 touchdowns, pretty good. 10 interceptions, and he was sacked 40 times. So you look at that, and this has been a constant problem with Minnesota. Oh man, it's the offensive line. If we make the offensive line better, they'll get better. You didn't really address it last season for whatever reason, because, I guess you liked getting Kirk Cousins killed. But you're like, okay, in this draft, we get Garrett Bradbury, get some pieces in there to make the offensive line a little better. Now, last season, if you look at the breakdown of the numbers, his average was about 7 yards per attempt when it came to Cousins throwing the ball. So it's not lighting the world on fire, and obviously you guys finished at 8-7-1. And he showed those flashes of like, oh, I can be really good. Like, he tore the Packers defense apart, right? But to look at it where it is now, you want to see that progression in that you had Adam Thielen come out, you had Stephon Diggs, you have those two really high-paid wide receivers, you have Dalvin Cook, right? So you have all the weapons, the majority of that defense is still there, you re-signed Anthony Barr, and, Cook struggled last year, so it was like, okay, maybe that's why we just haven't gotten a rhythm yet, and it's Kirk Cousins' first year. And again, I'm not trying to overreact here, but what you have now at quarterback, Kirk Cousins at this time, from what he's shown with his small sample size from this season and last season, he's not going to go out and win you games. And with Case Keenum, he did enough to win you games, and the defense did the rest. Kind of like the Bears, right? They have Trubisky, who isn't lighting the world on fire either. And I give Kirk Cousins a slight edge over Trubisky because of his experience. But you had Chase Daniel back there yesterday, who sure as hell ain't setting the world on fire, but he gave a lot of space to receivers. You had Allen Robinson making some great catches, and they were able to win the game. And your offense did nothing. And that's not to take away, or not accommodate for the Bears. The Bears have an amazing defense, one of the best defenses in the league. But, and Kirk Cousins got sacked 6 times. But the play calling or just the decisions by Kirk Cousins to just constantly throw little screens or checkdowns to Dalvin Cook, and how many times does it only have to gain 1 or 2 yards or lose yards that you go, this isn't working? Because the Bears are just like, hey, this guy isn't going to throw the ball more than 7 yards. Let's just stack the box and keep on going after him, and it was successful. because you took Dalvin Cook out of the equation, only getting 35 yards on the ground. Well, there you go. And even when Adam Thielen got separation in the beginning of the game, he freaking overthrew him. And so, just not good. But you take a look at this year so far. So let's take week 1, right? Kirk Cousins. You win against the Falcons. It's a really big win. You're like, oh man, this is great. 8 for 10. The guy only threw the ball 10 times. 98 yards, 1 touchdown, right? It's perfectly adequate. I wouldn't say worth $84 million, but adequate. Dalvin Cook, 21 rushing attempts, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook saves the day. Week 2 against the Packers, 14 for 32. Now he's got to throw triple what he did in week 1. 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. You lose against the Packers. And Dalvin Cook still had a good day. 20 attempts, 154 yards, and 1 touchdown. But again, every single time that you left it up to Kirk Cousins to go win you the game, he couldn't get it done. Dalvin Cook had that big 70-yard touchdown against the Packers, and still, you couldn't do anything. But then you bounce back week 3. Cousins, 15 for 21, only forced to throw the ball 20 times, 174 yards, 1 touchdown. You beat the Raiders, adequate. But here comes Dalvin Cook, 16 rushing attempts, 110 yards, 1 touchdown. So again, Cook is the constant. You make Cousins throw only 10 to 20 times, you're probably going to win the game because Dalvin Cook and the running back core is going to be able to do the rest. And then you have yesterday, week 4, 27 for 36. And so missing all the big plays, but a lot of that is garbage time too. It was in the 4th quarter where the Bears were up 2 scores and they're like, yeah, let them go down the field. But threw for over 230 yards. Lost, obviously, Dalvin Cook, 14 for 35 with only 1 touchdown, so he was incredibly limited. And there's just not a single way that you can look at these stats and be like, yeah, we should be paying this guy $84 million. He's not even the short-term future of your team right now, let alone long-term. And even if you want to blame the offensive line, he was only sacked 2 times before this game. Now, he's fumbled a whole bunch of times. He's already fumbled 6 times this year. I think only 1 actually went to the opposing team. But then he was sacked 6 times against the Bears, so you can blame some of that on the offensive line or just his inability to actually escape the pressure. But every single time that you have to have Kirk Cousins play a quality opponent, it ain't going to go well. Now, looking at your 2019 cap space, you have less than $2 million in cap because you have extended those guys on the defense. You've extended those playmakers on the offense. And so Thielen, he just got a 4-year, $64 million extension. You have a potential out in 2021, but after 2021, those numbers start going up real high until 2024. Stephon Diggs has a 5-year, $72 million deal. He's locked in until 2024. And you have Dalvin Cook, who needs to get re-signed because he's still on his rookie contract, so after the 2020 season, he's going to have to be re-signed. But if I'm Dalvin Cook, I'm looking at all the crap I got to do, and I'm saying, yeah, I'm not taking the field in 2020 until you pay me a lot of money. Because he doesn't have to. The guy is going to get paid a ridiculous amount of money since he's constantly putting up numbers. And so you look ahead at where the Vikings are. You're playing the Giants next week. You're most likely going to win, and everything will be well for a week. And then you're going to start playing quality opponents again. But the most important thing is that within this division, you're already 0-2. And the Lions are no pushover this year, as they almost beat the Chiefs. And so it would be one thing if you looked at the Vikings and said, okay, we're rebuilding, hopefully we finish 8-8 this year. We have a bad year, it is what it is. But 2 years ago, you were in the NFC Championship game. And you're handing out contracts like, sure as hell ain't in a rebuilding year. But right now, the guy that is eating up the majority of your cap is the guy that is holding your team back. Sure as hell to holding that offense back. And you look at guys like Teddy Bridgewater, who I am ecstatic for, and I think the majority of Minnesota Vikings fans will agree. You could not be happier for Teddy Bridgewater. He's now started 2 weeks in a row. He's beaten Seattle, and now he's knocked off the undefeated Cowboys. Good for Teddy. And I like Teddy Bridgewater a lot. I'm so glad he's been able to rebound, and he has a team around him that is very, very successful. But Vikings fans, can you honestly tell me right now that Kirk Cousins can go in and beat Seattle and Dallas? Right now. Your defense might be able to hold them down, But if you had to trust Kirk Cousins 2 minutes left to get the go-ahead touchdown for you, do you trust him? Because these 4 games sure as hell don't make me trust him. And so the problem is that even if you wanted out of this relationship at the end of the season, he's going to be $31 million in dead cap next year. And considering the contracts you've already signed, that's hoping that you get another adequate quarterback in there. But maybe you look to the draft. The thing is that Kirk Cousins is most likely going to be your starter for the rest of this season and the rest of next season. And it's not even about putting weapons around him because he has plenty of weapons. But it's just the fact that you got fleeced. You got fleeced. You gave him $84 million for 3 years, and it's all guaranteed. You didn't give yourself an out. And Vikings fans that I talked to when this happened said, oh, but it's only 3 years. We're not even a year and a half into it. We're not even halfway there. And so you look at this, and in the most competitive division in football right now, you're paying your quarterback like a rock star, the number 6 highest paid quarterback. And that's only behind guys like Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he ain't earning that money. He's not earning the money. And again, you could blame the offensive line, but the offensive line isn't overthrowing Adam Thielen. And the problem is that your own team is starting to turn on him. Your fans are turning on him, but your own team is. This was very apparent in week 2 against the Packers, and now it's became even, the voices are getting louder after this poor performance. And Kirk Cousins might go out, he might go out next week against the Giants and totally just throw all over them. Probably not, because Dalvin Cook will do the majority of it. But it's the Giants. They got a rookie quarterback who's going to be starting his second game. So I don't have any answers for you, Vikings. But damn, this is a warning to the other teams here of being like, go out and get those free agents, because you guys were this close from the freaking Super Bowl, man. You had the team. I was using you as an example of this is how you build a whole bunch of talent around a team, that it doesn't matter who your quarterback is, because whoever's back there, they're going to benefit from a strong run game and a strong defense. So who the hell cares if Chase Daniel or Case Keenum or Kirk Cousins is back there? But you didn't treat it like that. You said, no, we got to go out and get a guy that we got to pay big money for to get a big-time quarterback, because that'll put us over the edge. Just like you had a great running game with Adrian Peterson and a damn good defense, and you said, hey, let's go get Brett Favre. And that got you to the NFC Championship game. But this one is backfired thus far. And again, you guys are at 2-2. The ship isn't completely sunk. But in this division, already 0-2 within that division, Kirk Cousins needs to turn himself around quick. Or if he doesn't, you are going to have 2 more mediocre seasons, or whatever poor schmuck you put back behind that offensive line, you're going to have a guy who's going to be sitting back there making over $45 million in the next 2 years, just sitting on the bench. And that can't sit well with Vikings fans, and I don't think that Zimmer in that front office will allow that to happen. So for right now, you are stuck with Kirk Cousins. What you do to fix the scenario, I got no idea. I have no idea. But we're going to see if the Vikings are able to pull themselves out of this pit. But if a game's on the line and you give it to Kirk Cousins, I sure as hell do not have a whole lot of confidence in him. And it seems like the team doesn't either. But Vikings fans, NFC North fans, football fans, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are you freaking out just yet? Or is there still holding out for some hope, because a lot of season left. There's a lot of season left. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at Tom Grossi Comedy on the social media you see down below. Check out Patcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. And check out patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy for some cool rewards if you would like to support me. But thank you so much. We'll continue tomorrow with some videos. But I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.